been very good at being pathologically truthful about things and honest and direct, and when we see bullshit we want to call it out. We're awkward bastards, really. We very rarely do exactly what we're told, and we find that when someone gives us a brief, we usually have to rewrite it.
It's definitely a part of our whole strategy. We're a very opinionated company. We have strong opinions on how people should approach product development, how they should approach the internet, how consumers are kind of changing their whole usage, and we like to get out there and talk as much as possible. A
lot of clients actually just say, we know there's an opportunity here, we want to do something. Perhaps we've done some business planning, there's a business case on the table for making a product, but in our thinking there's this proposition-sized hole. We don't know what the thing is, we don't know how it feels to use it or what it is or how to make it. And that's where I think we can be very valuable in helping people do that very quickly and make the right product.
And some of us who'd worked together, myself and William and Isaac, used to work at a company in the original kind of .com boom. We decided that there was this huge opportunity to kind of leverage some new stuff that was happening on the internet. Facebook was just coming out of its college years, and we saw the fundamental shift that was going to happen.
We love making, and we'd been doing a little bit of work together and decided that actually the best bet at doing more and more of that kind of stuff was to go and set our own place up, which we did on our credit cards. It's very easy, by the way. I would advise everyone to do it.
And so the four of us set up off our credit cards. We found space in an advertising agency, and we just kind of went for it. I think we went for it kind of guns blazing.
The first 3 years were inside BBH in London, and they were very kind enough to give us 4 desks inside BBH.
The difficult thing about squatting inside another company is always the danger of picking up their company culture without having space to grow your own.
We got to the stage where we were about 25 people inside BBH, so we'd grown from 4 to 25, and it just got a bit embarrassing. And they were very gracious hosts and even found an old library for us to stay in as we got bigger and bigger, but we really wanted to be out in our own space. As soon as we walked in here and just saw the space, I mean, we've got 29 people here at the moment, but we've actually got room for maybe 50.
Kind of really looked for a place that had a workshop vibe, had a very kind of maker space attitude towards it, and we were really lucky to find this fantastic wharf building.
And we've got this very beautiful boardroom with a big sliding door.
Chanting words incessantly.
The other thing we liked about that and this whole area over here is just we can have events here. So we do have a lot of events in the evenings. We invite speakers in, sometimes have panel discussions, and that's something we want to do more and more. We want it to be a community space as well as being our office. Skype initially came to us with a marketing communications brief. We noticed that a lot of teachers were using Skype in incredible ways, and they wanted to really make a microsite with some videos on it showing some great teachers using Skype and perhaps help them to use Skype better. And we thought, that's an interesting thing, but perhaps there's a really much better opportunity there to create a kind of service layer that sits on top of Skype that's just for teachers, that makes Skype more useful for teaching.
So what we did was actually started contacting some of them and just said, can we just have a chat with you about how you use Skype at the moment? And it's really just for us to kind of understand more about the needs and the requirements and what it is that they're actually doing with it. And it's not really about asking people, what would you like Skype to do to help you with this? It's looking at okay, well, on the basis of what people are currently doing and where some of the issues are, then that you use that as a kind of jumping off platform to start thinking more creatively about the stuff that you could do.
And we found out very quickly that they didn't want help videos about how to use Skype. They actually wanted to find other teachers who were using Skype and share knowledge with each other.
We quite often start by sketching out ideas. It helps us to kind of articulate what a thing could be rather than being quite vague. So if you can actually sketch it out on paper and be like, this is what this thing looks like, it makes it easier for not just your team to understand what it is you're trying to propose, but the client. And also then when you're talking to potential kind of users or customers, you give them something that like concrete, they can be like, well, yes, that looks right, or no, that doesn't actually make sense at all. What are you talking about? Whereas if you talk quite vaguely about, you know, for example, with Skype, it could be, how could we sort of help teachers to connect to each other? That's a very vague thing. But if you show them something, they can be like, okay, well, that I understand how that could work, and I could see how I could use that, or I could see, actually, that would be too time consuming for me to do. I wouldn't bother with that.
So part of the process was really kind of understanding this community and really building an ecology around them, so that we understood all of the ways in which they wanted to do things and the experiences they had. Talking to users, we actually had an opportunity to start building a really kind of interested beta test community of people that were quite passionate about using Skype in their classroom and were excited to sort of take part in it and give feedback. Using a service called MailChimp, you can basically capture people's email addresses. So we just built a simple page saying, this is a service that will be launched by Skype for Teachers coming in December. If you're interested, you know, it will help you to connect up with other teachers around the world. Sign up here, and we got about 2,000 people signing up within a couple of weeks. And that was literally no marketing, nothing, just using kind of word of mouth, Twitter, reaching out to people, building kind of a Skype in the Classroom Twitter account, building kind of a community around that. We weren't building Facebook, we weren't building, you know, Google+, we weren't building LinkedIn. We were building a completely new kind of environment where teachers could have a profile and they could share their experiences and their resources and their understanding of how to use this technology in their classrooms in a way that was completely fresh. And it's technology like that that really opens up opportunities for doing completely innovative and exciting new approaches to things like teaching.
In this room here, we have people who come from software development backgrounds. They might have run startups. They might be extremely talented software developers in their own right.
It's people who have created and made stuff on their own, and it shows their kind of, you know, huge potential in making things.
But the way we all work here is completely unique, and we actually design a different process for each project based on some kind of core fundamental principles and philosophies that are largely drawn from things like agile software development and the lean startup movement. We are quite a geeky bunch. We actually spend a lot of time talking to each other on Twitter and Instagram, even inside this room, which is a bit weird.
I heard he threw it all away. He gambled till his dying day. But I remember when and how it all began. Dreams were made of yesteryears. The love we made was loud and clear. But I remember when.
The other thing we want to do is build on some of the stuff we've done to build our own products. We built Hologram last year for South by Southwest.
So Hologram is an app that we made this year for South by Southwest. A few of us from the office go over to Austin to kind of go to talks.
For the past few years we've taken large contingents out to South by Southwest, partly as a mass staff training exercise in the latest and greatest things, and partly a chance to meet interesting people, interesting entrepreneurs.
Eat Mexican food and all that kind of good stuff. And for the past few years we've been doing homepage takeovers, so we're obsessed with Instagram, so we did one with Instagram. But this year we had a little bit of time and we wanted to do something kind of new and interesting, kind of fun and quite visible as well. I think one of the interesting things about South by, especially when we go, is the kind of back channel or the kind of chat bot that's going on behind the scenes is really, really interesting, and we wanted to find a new way to kind of amplify that, kind of make it seen rather than just being on a website, kind of could we bring it into the real world. So we wanted to create like a really kind of new and interesting and kind of silly and fun and frivolous kind of little interaction. So we were trying to think about how can we kind of make a new interaction that you don't get to see very often. What if it was just like that, you know?
A big glowing sign that you hold up and put messages on that simultaneously tweets it into a hashtag stream. It's perfect for conferences.
We only had like about an hour or two to kind of sketch up some ideas and kind of made some little paper prototypes and kind of showed them around the office. What would it like if we kind of little funny little kind of sayings and kind of showed them to people. It kind of got a smirk. So we were designing and developing parallel. We were kind of sitting beside each other just working through some ideas. So when we got out to Austin, we were chatting and hanging out with people, and then all of a sudden we kind of saw one or two popping up in a bar here and there or at a talk. What was interesting, while we got this little idea out, it was really undefined. I mean, it had some pre-made cards, which were kind of in-jokes for Austin and South by Southwest, you know. But then you could also create your own, and you can also do some scoring. We were kind of just trying to leave a little bit of kind of hackable space inside the app.
We're amazed it's now done over 40,000 downloads as an iPad app, which is we just didn't expect that at all. I thought it might do 5.
Which is quite successful for just a little kind of 1 week's work and a kind of silly little idea that was born over lunchtime. But that hackable space is the really interesting thing about it. A couple of months after South by, we hadn't got around to making a second release, and we got a really, really beautiful little email from a group of teachers in Australia, and they had organised a conference talking about how technology can be used in teaching, and they'd flagged up Hologram as an app that they were using to kind of help teach deaf children. So it's really, really nice that by sending out a little kind of a simple product with enough space for people to put something of themselves into, you can have these wonderful use cases pop up.
So that's quite exciting, and those are the projects that we really get around as a company and really love working on our own stuff.
The best way to design a product or a service is to start by adding on layers of information. The very first layer is to start with a sketch.
While chanting words incessantly, he danced upon fortune.
And then it's very, very quick to be able to come up with a sketch. You know, you can do something very, very quickly with a pencil and get something in front of a client very, very quickly. And I think that's the important thing is, first of all, how you set things up to the client and making it clear that this is a sketch, things can change. In fact, that's the beauty of a sketch, that things can change very, very quickly. The client is focusing on the idea behind the sketch, not the presentation of the sketch itself. So one of the things we do on projects is to try and come up with a sketch user journey that shows the main touch points between a user and the service.
Who and where and when.
You have to show the user interacting with the service and finding a reason to want to use the service. So they start off really, really rough, incredibly rough, literally just the key points of information. Usually show that to the rest of the team, brought in. Maybe they're then written as something that's a little bit more detailed, and actually as a story. Read a little bit here. Charlotte reads the shorter stories and then clicks through to one of the longer articles online. It's very descriptive, which is then turned into a proper thumbnail user journey, an actual storyboard. There's the actual first page of the user journey that this sketch ended up, where we've integrated photos and used Photoshop to be able to add in colour, and that kind of goes through this journey of she moves through the email, she clicks on a particular story, she comes to the site to read that story. And here the ideas that we were trying to get across were the idea about being able to have web typography, being able to use large images, how you might be able to use product rollovers on top of the image. But all of these ideas are service ideas. They're not necessarily presentation ideas, they're not advertising ideas, they're not ideas necessarily so focused on layout. But by using the sketch technique, it's very easy to get all the ideas in. Agile is fantastic when it's within a technology process. It's been written for developers, story points, all of that kind of stuff. It makes perfect sense from a development point of view. But how you actually combine that with a design methodology has actually been really tough. I think sketching is inherently a very agile process.
The other initiative we've been part of for the last 50 days, which is called 50/50, and really it's a bit of a collaborative experiment to make 50 applications that live on the web and try and raise money to aid famine relief in East Africa. We don't know whether it's going to work or not. We're trying to raise £1 million. We started fundraising 2 or 3 days ago. There's some incredible projects, and that's another thing that people have really, really kind of rallied around and done in their spare time, evenings, weekends, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we just like making stuff, and even when there's nothing to make officially, we just carry on making stuff.